My name is Kah, and I'm here to speak to you about what my old title is called The Importance of Crafting Language in UX, which, after about 15 minutes of reflection, sounded a little bit pretentious, for want of a better word. I used a blunter one, but that might have to come after lunch. And it took a few iterations of getting the title right, so I started thinking about what exactly was it that I was trying to say here. Language was kind of the core part of what I'm trying to communicate, but maybe importance might have been too long a term, or maybe craft was too ambiguous or vague. And user experience, while to a crowd of UX people, seems like such a wide term that's really, really loaded. And I really didn't like that, and it sort of took me a while, sort of self-flagellation, before I kind of got to this title, which I feel is a lot simpler to understand and kind of more to the point. And I feel we need to write well for other people. And it doesn't really matter if you're in your product team, or if you're a design team, or if you're user researching. This is kind of the core part which sometimes gets left behind when we're designing products. So I'm a recovering academic. And for my sins, I used to be a senior lecturer at Victoria University, and I've since relapsed. I have a couple of grad students, and I teach a grad class. And I've been really fortunate with the grad class recently because it's been the most diverse class I've had the opportunity to teach. And what that means is that there's a lot of semantic terms that you assume everyone knows if they come from a design background, that all of a sudden there's a lot of missed knowledge that they don't have, or they don't necessarily have straight away. I'm also a designer at Flick, a lecturer. And so obligatory plug, UX at Flick is a team effort. And that's kind of, I'm really, really proud of that. So our friendly staff who answer the phones, to sort of the great people behind social media accounts, to the team that writes code, to the person that approves the writing of the code, to the product team that figures out what the right code to write is. And sort of the strategy and values set down from the management team means that we approach our customers or our users every step of the way. As a designer, there's this kind of beautiful ideal that most of us dream of, is that where my intention for the user in this particular user experience is crystal clear. And all it takes is this kind of beautifully pixel-perfect crafted icons that sort of magically is universally understood, which is now clearly not the case. And then and as a user, if I'm faced with this sort of beautiful crafted pixel wonders, I have no doubt what I'm meant to do, and I get the right feedback from my actions, and I know exactly where I am in the digital product at all times. We all know that might not necessarily be the case, or we may not have the luxury to be able to craft these things, and so we have the great fallback of labels or telling people what to do in words. And text is a very, very powerful thing, and it serves many different roles quite often at the same time. The impact of words is often really undervalued. When writing for a digital product, it has to be extremely concise and yet communicate quite a lot of meaning at the same time. So in that sense, when you're trying to craft something that works for the business owners and the stakeholders, that what you're writing quite often ends up being closer to poetry or haiku. So it has to help with interaction design and visual design to create an experience that's sort of greater than the sum of its parts. And to be clear, this is no small admission from a designer who spends far, far, far too much time obsessing over like bigger system and pixels, or even like occasionally millimeters, than say, well, actually, the words that I'm putting into the interactions that I'm designing are quite often equally important, if not more important, than the color choices, or whether or not everything is perfectly aligned. Something that I'm really aware of and more aware of now is that, particularly with the grad class, is that language or jargon identifies us and it becomes this identifier of our tribe, as it were. Designers would use very designer-specific jargon. I spend time with our BAs, and they use very specific jargon. And then there's the developers that I work very closely with, and they try their absolute best to sort of talk down to me. Here, little designer, let us explain the internet to you and how that works. But they're very kind about it, but at the same time, it has to be really clear that actually the language that we choose can be simultaneously very inclusive or very exclusive. And I don't think there's a good or a bad here. If you are very conscious about it, that being exclusive might be the right thing. If I were a clothing brand that was marketing specifically at 15 to 25-year-olds, I might not be looking at terms that attracts someone of a different generation. But it's something to be very aware of, I feel, if you are using words that are exclusive, either consciously or unconsciously, something that we need to be really careful about. So I'm going to read you this little quote. We talk about the power of words, both content and style, all the time, when it comes to friendships, romance, work dynamics, and dare we even mention it, though nothing is more telling or more relevant, politics. Words have the power to change our opinions, incite action, divide or unify us, move us. Words can shape reality. So this comes from Jennifer Vano, who's the Associate Director of Verbal Design. And it's actually this little snippet that I pulled out from John Maeda's annual Design and Tech report. And this year he's identified, he and his team has identified a number of trends, that there are more and more designer founders who are getting VC funding. There's this massive emergence of a market in China, which is not that surprising, and that language is going to be very important for designers. That maybe coding is no longer the unicorn skill, but writing is going to be. And there are no excuses. You hear it every so often from designers or developers that, oh, I'm not a writer. I might be dyslexic, or I'm not really a comedian. I'm not sure how to write really funny things. If you are interested in user experience, a lot of the time your job is to solve a problem and to communicate. And choosing the right words to do that job is absolutely what you have to do. There are zero excuses. Words sort of, after a while, with the right tone, form part of your product personality. It sort of makes the product or the thing that you're designing almost human. And when you're not there holding your user's hand through that particular user experience, words do your job for you. And there are really three kind of key simple ways to do that. Is that number one, always have empathy with the people that you're writing for. Choose simplicity when you can, and with that would come clarity. I'm reminded by a Mark Twain quote with this one, which is, I didn't have time to write you a short letter, so I wrote a long one instead. So having said that, though, you kind of have to find the right words and the right tone to do the right job for you. So this is a reserve sign, this is a really generic sign at any given restaurant table, and it communicates very clearly to you the state of that table. That table is reserved, it's booked out for someone else, I can't sit at that table. And that does the job, right? It's relatively concise, semantically a little bit unclear, like is the table shy? Rather than just booked out? Is that why no one's sitting at the table? But it does the job. It means that no one should take that table. This is a sign from a local restaurant, like a really good one at the Breslin. It's called the Breslin, which is on Willow Street. It's very good. And what the sign does is that it all of a sudden gives the table a lot more personality, and it sort of fits in really well with the personality of the restaurant. I'm sort of really excited about this sign every time I see it. It's this gorgeous piece of writing, and you can almost hear the restaurateur sort of little smile and wink with it. This is a slightly longer one, and it's to sell body scrub. I guess it's soap. And so maybe when you sort of think about the writing on the box or the packaging, it's not about the function of the product that you're trying to sell, but it's more about the feeling that you want to invoke. In this case, it's sort of, you have a really good idea of who they're targeting here. It's a little bit flirty, and you can sort of, if you do get dirty, it's okay that the soap would be there to take care of you afterwards. And maybe sometimes if you want to, if you just want to clickbait someone, that you can just hint at your content, but hint at it in a really beautiful way. So this comes from, I don't actually know where it comes from. I think it's from cider. I found that bottle cap on one of my colleagues' table, and I just really liked it. And it tells me what I get to expect if I open this bottle. When I'm drinking it, it's not about the contents of the bottle so much, but what is the context I'm meant to enjoy the bottle in? That maybe I'm not drinking cider at 4:30 inside my office, but actually maybe it's about I can drink cider outside at 3 o'clock, sitting in a park in the sunshine. Who has sent email newsletter via MailChimp before? Be brave, it's okay. MailChimp does a phenomenal job, I feel, of reassuring their users. And sort of it helps you navigate the sort of anxiety and emotion through this process. It's quite a big deal. Like if I've scheduled an email, like will it go out at the right time? You've thought about when to send this email a lot. So like, is it going to go at the right time? Is it going to go out New Zealand time or American time? How's that going to work? Or it makes this kind of uncertainty really comfortable. It sort of elevates this. It sort of, we're about to send an email to 5,000 of your most important users. This is it. No one in your company really cares about this particular moment. No one sees you sweat, but MailChimp gets how you feel. And this is your moment of glory. And it elevates this kind of wonderfully, what is normally really anxious to what can be really joyful. Who doesn't love getting a high five, even if it is from a virtual monkey? So who has gone out to lunch recently and had this long debate about you sitting down in a restaurant and you're wondering what to order for lunch? And you kind of normally, here in New Zealand anyway, we settle for the main, and then we sort of debate about the sides afterwards. And sort of as you go through, a lot of the time you kind of go, like, do I want a side with that, or do I want fries with that? This is from the menu at Hangar. And this is a brilliant just-in-time recommendation, and it's really anticipatory of the experience. It knows that I've come in, I've sat down, I've thought about what I want to have with my main, and then I sort of make my way down the menu as I'm going to choose, okay, what sort of fries do I want? And they have 2 different options, but of course, the line that I see is not what fries do I want, but actually it's the permission, actually, of saying, hey, yeah, you can, you should. Actually, not that you can, you should. You want fries with lunch. Trust us. And that's really important. This is a beautifully classic upsell, except that it's done in time, no pressure, really. In a similar anticipatory fashion, the sign in our lobby does the same thing. I quite often walk into an office building, and you kind of walk into a lobby, and you kind of go, okay, I need to go to the 5th floor. And there's no faith in stairs. We don't trust stairs. We go into the elevator, and I know that if I push button number 5, I will get out to where I want to go all the time. Stairs are a lot more ambiguous for whatever reason. Maybe because we can't keep count of the different flights that we have to take. Am I on the 1st floor or 3rd floor? Where am I? And so when I designed this sign, I'm really proud of this one, actually, is that you're assured. It's okay. If you take the stairs, you will find what you're looking for. I'm going to give you one really specific example, which I'm quite happy about. This is how do we rescue victory from the jaws of defeat with this one. When faced with an error message has a really specific role to play. It has to be clear, it has to be helpful, it has to be specific to the situation. Ideally, it presents you a solution or an alternative action to take. And most importantly, it has to relieve anxiety. Like it has to sort of be, makes you feel okay, and it has to not frustrate. The classic example of an error message that everyone knows, but it's actually really good if you sort of step away from the fear of the blue screen. And that it says, okay, a problem has been detected. Windows has been shut down to prevent damage, where it's under control. And if I were to make an assumption of who wrote this, I have this sort of picture of a very competent engineer who's been doing this for 25 years. He's rocked in and says, we found a problem, there's a leak, we're going to fix it. Where it falls down is that it says, the problem seems to be caused by the following, this special file. And then sort of, at the very end, there is this technical information that goes, stop. That's really, really, really scary. And we see the sign, we don't read this anymore. Like it's just really freaky. Windows 8's new versions, not much better. But it's not very helpful. I actually think the previous one is more helpful. It says if this is the first time you've seen this screen, restart your computer, it'll be fine. If you've seen this for the second time, maybe the last thing that you did when you opened it up broke something. This sign doesn't say anything. It tries to give you a bit of personality. There's the sad face. If your PC ran into a problem it couldn't handle. Whatever you were trying to do clearly upset it. And now it needs to take time away from you. You should step away, make a cup of tea, and it needs to restart. When you restart, if you sort of made note of the error, you can search for the error online, which is the HAL initialization has failed. Actually, a really good example is the GitHub 404, which is kind of one of my favorites, because it understands who GitHub is for, or who uses GitHub. There's maybe a bit of an assumption that maybe people who use GitHub are a little bit more technical, and they would really appreciate the sort of the history of Star Wars. And then getting to the 404, and someone waving, this is go away, try again. Last flick example, I promise. And this one I'm also really proud of, where it says, computer says no. Someone remembers Little Britain. And that was kind of where I was going with that. And I had feedback from a user once, and he says, I got your error message, and I didn't mind that I got your error message. It was okay, because I just felt really happy for the rest of the day. As I was reminded about Little Britain, I might have watched a couple of videos afterwards. And so even if the audience might not share this sort of cultural knowledge with you, try to keep the simplicity of the main message clear and offer some supporting solutions. What you don't see that's covered up with fail with good humor is go away, have a cup of tea, and it'll be all right. I had a colleague actually who said to me, Kah, we need to introduce you to the year 2000. I was giving him a couple of references to some work. And so it's really true though. Like if you are going to be sort of referencing pop culture in this way, you do need to spend a bit of time sort of referencing maybe more contemporary pop culture, if that is who you're writing for, recognizes that maybe actually referencing Tay-Tay might not be the end of the world, that you'd still be able to hold your head high, even if you are rocking out to her music afterwards. It's okay. I give you permission. But also remember that the error message has to be contextually appropriate, and that sometimes relentless positivity might not necessarily be the right clue or sort of the right way of doing things. And it sort of that applies to us as well. We had a little shruggy in our legal disclaimer for a while, and some of our customers said, "Oh, actually, maybe you should remove the shruggy. That makes you feel like a little more really uncaring. So looking forward, what is the importance of language here? I have this really murky magic 8-ball and where language takes us. I think number one, there are multiple new opportunities that chatbots have arrived. It's not about, and it's no longer about how 5 or 8 years ago, you used to feel really cool when you could pull out your iPhone and say, hey Siri, name the song. And it's not that anymore. I think conversational interfaces have absolutely arrived, whether or not we've sort of prepared for it, even though sometimes conversational interfaces might be less perfect. And this might be just even what gets translated as you try to use a conversational interface from human to human, much less human to computer. So rules of text replacement here clearly were not designed with the full context in mind. They were kind of more designed and really specific. I'm going to change the spelling to the right thing rather than sort of figure out the broader language. And we sort of run into trouble because we currently demand that machines intuit really complex ideas that we have in our heads. And then the only interface that we have are really simple words. And the machines don't have yet the benefit of sort of our assumed knowledge or shared history. And to expect a equally complex transaction to come back is actually potentially problematic. So one of the really good examples actually of complex interactions made simply is Slackbot. So Slack is this chat tool that is meant to replace email. I'm not sure about whether it's replace email where you work, but definitely where we work, it's replace email with a lot of GIFs of cats. And sort of the occasional file sharing and then the right thing. And Slackbot does a really good job. It's a bot, it does its best to answer, and you sort of interact with it through the same mechanism that you interact with all your colleagues. Less GIFs, more actual typing, and it's not perfect, it's a little bit clunky, but it's surprisingly powerful. And where it is powerful is that when you get to layer the complexity through your instructions. For example, I now use it almost exclusively to remind me of calendar events or as a to-do list, because it's really easy. It's like, it understands, remind me on Friday morning to do X. And it sort of picks that up, and even though you can type it in multiple different ways. This is UX Bear, and UX Bear is this little chat experiment. You visit it on uxdesign.cc, and it serves up articles and user experience that you might be interested in, and you get to it by answering several questions that UX Bear might ask you. Has a little bit of basic learning built in. It learns your name, so when you come back, you go, hello, Kah, how are you? It's pretty cool. I discovered this while sort of fleshing out my talk. So one of the more ubiquitous chat channels out there is no doubt Facebook Messenger. And there are multiple people, multiple different organizations reaching out via Facebook Messenger, testing out bots. And my apologies if there are any copywriters in the room, but the bots are coming for universities and ad schools. So this is an ad school that you subscribe to via Facebook Messenger, and your entire interaction is through Facebook Messenger. So it sort of tells you what copywriters do, and then gives you a bit of a syllabus introduction, which I find kind of really interesting. Fascinating. Or maybe you were trying to trawl eBay for something really specific, and sometimes it's easier to describe it in words rather than find the pictures. Here is here's eBay ShopBot. Again, you interact with it via Facebook Messenger, and the value all of a sudden of having a concierge service that searches an auction site for you, that sort of gives you the right deals that you're looking for with no judging. No, Shopbot is not going to judge you for the things that you're searching eBay for at 11:45 at night. It's okay. Or voice-based interactions are going to become more and more common. So this is like the pop culture poster child of voice-based interactions. But for those of us unfortunate enough to have rung up Spark or the IRD anytime in the last 2 or 3 years, you'd know that yelling into the phone what you want it to do is not the easiest way to interact, right? So there's the bot. So for those of you who don't know, if you ring up IRD, there's this lovely voice that tells you, for such and such service, no, it says, please tell me what you would like to do. I would like to not give you more money. Please. Please stop taking tax from me. I'm afraid I don't understand. Give me my money back. And it's already here. It's been here for 2 or 3 years, and it's in government, so you know it's definitely here. Or for something that's more everyday, this is an Echo. But what makes the Echo really exciting is that you can get Alexa on the Echo, and Alexa is Amazon's voice control system. It lets you sort of speak your wishes, and then it controls your home. So you might say, Alexa, turn the lights down, or Alexa, play Taylor Swift. And it sort of turns this device all of a sudden into a smartphone hub and Jeeves into one. And all of a sudden, there's a machine listening to your every instruction and your every whim. That's something that's we're going to have to be really, really careful about. So, are there challenges ahead for UX writers and UX designers? I absolutely think so. I think there are just as many improvements, opportunities for improvement. And sort of as we build ecosystems, there are more opportunities to talk to more people in more places via these different written or verbal channels. And now that chatbots like Siri and Alexa are going to become more commonplace, we are sprinting towards this reality where we sort of primarily might only interact with products and brands through words. And what it means is that the importance of clarity in these TLDR times are going to be more important. So to end, please write carefully. Words are very important. And I think we can do better because George Carlin once said, words are all we have, really. We have thoughts, and thoughts are fluid. And then we assign a word, and we're stuck with that word for that thought. So be careful with words. I like to think that the same words can hurt, can heal, and it's a matter of how you pick them. Thank you very much for your time. Appreciate it.